are banana facilities powered? Theory number 1. Banana facilities are powered by oil flowing through their pipe on the side of the tower. But this is disproven by the fact that you can place a banana facility above water on a floaty. But offshoring is possible, and I suppose extracting oil out of the sea is a way to power the banana research facility. Theory number 2. The facility uses banana waste and mixes it with ocean water or dirt to create some sort of concoction which powers the facility. But that is also unlikely. Theory number 3 is that the monkeys use solar panels to get energy and then they store them in batteries, but the batteries would need to be really strong to last more than even 24 hours. This could be the same with hydro energy or nuclear energy. What do you think? How do spike factories have infinite spikes? Theory number 1. There are pipes under the map which allow for spikes to be transported at super high speeds and would then be pushed out when they get to the spike factory. But this is unlikely due to how hard it would be to transfer a bunch of spikes at such high speed and such a high volume of spikes in general. Theory number 2 is that the monkeys have an off-map factory where spikes are produced and they could use portal technology to launch the spikes into the portals, which allows it to come out the other end. We know this is possible due to the Dark Knight's portal ability, but this would be hard to pull off even for the monkeys. Theory number 3 is that the monkeys have found a way to produce spikes out of thin air or any infinite material such as water, and the entire process happens in the spike factory itself. Once the spikes are made, it's launched out and the spikes go onto the map, but then again this would be very hard to do considering some spikes are even explosive. How are lead balloons resistant to lasers? Theory number 1 is that the leads are also partially made out of glass, which allows them to reflect the lasers or just kind of absorb them, making them not do any damage. But this is also kind of impossible to do and would be kind of stupid anyway. Theory number 2 is that the lasers are simply not hot enough and thus they can't melt through the lead balloons. And considering lead melts at roughly 330 Celsius, that's quite possible. But then again, lasers are still lasers, so. Theory number 3 is that the balloons invented some kind of shield for the lead balloons, making them laser resistant using some weird magic. And considering we already see this in purple balloons, it's quite possible, but it would also be a kind of lackluster and boring answer to the question. But my personal favorite theory is that Ninja Kiwi is just some stupid game company that doesn't really care about obscure things like this. How do camo balloons actually work? Theory number 1 is that the balloons have invented some way of making camo balloons invisible, just like air, making light unable to reflect, which basically means that it is invisible. And in response, some monkeys have developed ways to see it or have just been trained to have super special eyesight. But this would be very hard for the monkeys to pull off. Theory number 2 is that the camo balloons can shift colors to become basically invisible, like some squids. And the monkeys would thus either use heat cameras or just train very well to notice it. And this is honestly the most possible theory. Theory number 3 is that the monkeys just use some weird ass stupid magic to hide the balloons, and the monkeys have made some weird sci-fi technology to counter this, but this is the most boring answer, so it doesn't really count. The final theory is that Ninja Kiwis made it unclear on purpose to hide the real truth of what's happening to our own world. How does Geraldo get his items? Theory number 1. Geraldo buys them for cheap off the black market or for any low price anywhere in a different area of the monkey world, and then resells it to you for a profit. This is very much so possible as he is technically a traveling merchant, so he can buy many things off map and then sell them to you, and with each upgrade, you're basically unlocking more items, kinda like a subscription. Theory number 2 is that Geraldo makes the item himself, and with each upgrade, it allows him to buy more tools and items to expand his inventory. This is possible as many merchants make their own items, but still is a lot more popular to buy low and sell high, and it still is to this day. Theory number 3 is that Geraldo actually is very unbalanced tower, and Ninja Kiwi takes no real time to create balanced and equal good here. What happens to balloons when they enter the LOTN portal? Theory number 1 is that LOTN sends the balloons to a different dimension where they just kind of build up and chill there. Maybe it's a paradise where all the balloons just hang out, and maybe it's an absolute hell for the balloons. Who knows? Theory number 2 is that the balloons are sent to some kind of slaughterhouse where they will immediately be burnt or killed, just to make sure they don't exist anymore. This option is pretty likely, and honestly it just is what actually happens. But the only problem with it is that this would mean that LOTN would need to get pops, which it doesn't. Theory number 3 is that the balloons are just kind of sent back to where they live or whatever, and the monkeys are just kicking the can down the road like we do in real life with many things. This would mean that the balloons aren't pops, and would make sense since the balloons that enter the portal don't count as actual pops in the game.
So stay alert, or else maybe the Bloons will be sent to our dimension next. What actually happens to the monkeys when you sell them? Theory number 1 is that the monkeys simply use teleportation technology and then just leave very, very, very fast. This makes the most sense since when you buy the monkeys, you're paying to own them. Not in a weird way, but in a football player kind of way. And then when you sell them, you're just selling them to a different player who's playing at the time, just on a different map. Theory number 2 is much darker, and that is that you just kill the monkeys straight up, taking all their belongings and then selling them to make some money back. This is definitely not the answer, and if you ask Ninja Kiwi, they would say no, but it's still fully a possibility. Theory number 3 is that the sold monkeys are just kind of left homeless and without a job, with all their personal belongings being stolen and sold, causing the monkeys to just kind of end up sad and alone. And when you buy the monkeys, you're not paying for the monkeys, but instead a corporation that leases out monkeys or just sells them completely. And when you sell them, they really don't have any other place to go.
How does Big Trap work? Theory number 1 is that the Big Trap quickly creates a hole where it would suck any balloon that goes above the hole and then crushes the balloon into pieces. So any balloon that goes over the Big Trap gets sucked in, crushed into pieces, and then converted into money. Theory number 2 is that the balloons are sent to a completely different dimension, kind of like the Legend of the Night, where the balloons would either live a nice and happy life or just completely burn in some hellish dimension. Theory number 3 is that the Big Trap simply is some sort of controlled black hole which either only eats balloons or is specifically made to eat balloons. Meaning if the engineer lost control of it, we would all end up nice and dead in a big black hole. The most possible theory would be number 1, but both are still possible in my opinion. But my favorite theory is that Big Trap is actually its own independent tower which we do not have any control of, and it just likes to go around and eat balloons, and then pays us for allowing it to do so.
What is the glue gunner's glue made out of? Theory number 1 is that it honestly depends on which glue gunner, but it's most likely just some very good super glue which slows down balloons. And if you decide to go with the top half, the only thing you're really doing is adding a radioactive substance to the super glue, which makes it toxic and actually pop the balloons. But if we're talking about the bottom half, it's a different story. It'll most likely be Calobacter, which is one of the stickiest substances known to man, and the monkeys have most likely mixed it with some other chemical and thus made it able to slow down even the biggest and heaviest of metal blimps. Theory number 2 is that the glue is actually just a naturally grown substance which doesn't exist in our world but does exist in the world of the monkeys, basically giving them an exclusive super sticky substance. Theory number 3 is that the glue actually isn't what we think it is, and it's an alien-like substance. What did you think I was gonna say then, huh? Is there BTD6 lore? Theory number 1 is that yes, there is a BTD timeline, starting with the original game and ending with BTD Battles 2, with Bloons Monkey City coming after BTD 4 and BTD Battles coming after Bloons City 5. And there is an entire timeline and story behind this, with the monkeys evolving throughout every game, and eventually we will get BTD 7 where the monkeys are even smarter and more powerful. Theory number 2 is that no, there isn't, and whilst the BTD Reddit wants you to think there is, there genuinely isn't. BTD is just a tower defense game franchise with nothing else to note of really. Each game is just a more advanced version of the other game and has nothing to do with the other. Theory number 3 is that Ninja Kiwi actually has planned out a full timeline of events and such, connecting each game together, and has created a secret project to bring the Bloons monkeys to life. And if any of us found out about the fact, then we would uncover their plan and the amount of people who would find out and would speculate about what's next. Thus Ninja Kiwi has begun Operation Ooga Stooga, where they silence anyone who decides to